They told her love and war could never share the same battlefield. That a warrior's heart should be as cold as her steel, her loyalty as sharp as her blade. But what happens when the enemy you were sworn to destroy becomes the only one who truly sees you? When every lesson, every oath, every drop of blood shed in the name of honor starts to feel like a carefully crafted lie? Kaela was never meant to fall in love. Especially not with him, the enemy commander. The man her people called a monster. But fate doesn't care about borders, and love is the cruelest weapon of all. One that can shatter kingdoms, rewrite legacies, and force even the bravest warrior to choose, betray the throne, or betray her heart. This isn't just a love story. It's a story of rebellion, of impossible choices, of a woman torn between duty and desire. And by the end, you'll be asking yourself, would you have chosen any differently? In a land where loyalty was carved into steel and honor sealed with blood, there lived a warrior named Kaela. Her name echoed across the northern borders, whispered by frightened villagers and envied by seasoned knights. But beneath the armor and sharpened blades, there was a heart that had been taught never to trust, especially not an enemy. Life in the army had shown her that feelings were a weakness. And yet, fate never cared for such rules. They say every warrior faces an opponent they can't defeat. For Kaela, it wasn't a man with a sharper sword or a deadlier aim. It was a stranger's eyes, cold as winter, yet burning with something unsettlingly familiar. His name? Dane, the enemy commander, the ghost of every nightmare told by fireside. But no one warned her that behind those eyes hid a story, one that could shatter everything. You see, wars aren't just fought with blades, they're fought with choices. And the hardest battles? They happen in the quiet, when your heart begins to question what your mind has always obeyed. Kaela had trained her whole life to slay enemies, not understand them. But destiny was already tightening its grip, and soon, no steel would protect her from what was coming next. The first time their eyes met, it wasn't on the battlefield, it was in the ruins of an old chapel, hidden deep within enemy territory. Kaela had gone there for reconnaissance, expecting danger, but not him. Dane stood beneath the broken stained glass, moonlight slicing across his face, as if fate itself wanted her to see him clearly. There was no armor between them. No armies. Just two lost souls, and a silence heavier than any war. She could have drawn her blade. Should have, perhaps. But something in his gaze made her pause, like they were both carrying the same invisible scars. The walls between them cracked that night, though neither would admit it. Enemies weren't supposed to hesitate. But isn't it funny how the heart never follows orders? In that moment, the lines between duty and desire blurred, and the ground beneath them began to shift. Kaela told herself it meant nothing. A chance encounter. A mistake she'd never repeat. But deep down, the truth clawed its way through her defenses. She'd seen something in him, something dangerous. Not the kind of danger that ends lives, but the kind that changes them. And as she rode back to camp, the image of those eyes, it refused to leave her. Days turned into weeks, but the memory of that night haunted Kaela more than any battlefield wound. She'd fought men twice her size, survived ambushes, endured the harshest winters, but nothing prepared her for the quiet war raging inside her now. His eyes, his presence, that unbearable connection, it followed her like a shadow. And no matter how far she rode, she couldn't outrun it. Rumors started to circulate, whispers of an enemy commander who fought not with brutality, but with strategy and honor. It made no sense. The man Kaela had seen in the chapel didn't match the stories of merciless raids. It was as if two versions of him existed, the monster her people feared, and the man who had hesitated, just like her. Confusion isn't weakness, they taught her, but it sure felt like it. She trained harder, fought fiercer, buried herself in duty. But it was pointless. Every time her sword clashed, she wondered, what if it was him on the other side? Her heart, once armored like steel, was cracking under the weight of unanswered questions. And deep down, a terrifying possibility whispered, what if the real enemy wasn't him, but everything she believed in? The day finally came when swords met, and there were no more chapel walls to hide behind. The battlefield stretched like a sea of chaos, banners torn, war cries echoing through the hills. Amidst the storm of steel, Kaela saw him, Dane, calm, precise, untouchable. Their eyes locked, and the world around them vanished. In that heartbeat, it wasn't about kingdoms or orders, it was personal. They fought as equals, every strike a question, every parry a confession neither dared to speak. His skill was undeniable, but so was the hesitation that flickered across his face, the same hesitation burning inside her. The soldiers around them couldn't see it, but their blades whispered truths only they understood. It wasn't just a fight, it was a choice neither was ready to make. Breathless, blades poised, they stood inches apart. Time slowed. The hate their people nurtured for generations crumbled in that space between them. Kaela could have ended it. So could he. But they didn't. Because sometimes, the sharpest weapon isn't the sword in your hand, but the feelings you've sworn to bury. After that battle, nothing was the same. Victory was declared on paper, but Kaela couldn't feel it. The songs of triumph rang hollow, and every cheer from her comrades only deepened the ache inside her. She'd seen Dane walk away, alive, but with eyes heavy as hers. Two warriors, bound by duty, shackled by feelings they never asked for. It wasn't supposed to be like this. Back at camp, the commanders celebrated strategies, casualties reduced, borders defended. But Kaela sat by the fire, staring into the flames, haunted by questions no map could answer. How could an enemy feel more familiar than her own brothers in arms? How could the one she was raised to hate make her doubt everything? The battlefield was clear. Her heart? A storm without direction. Nights turned restless. Sleep brought no peace, only memories, the clash of swords, the weight of his stare, the unspoken words between them. Her armor felt heavier now, not because of iron, but because of the cracks within. And for the first time, Kaela wondered, was she fighting for what was right, or just what she'd been told? Fate has a twisted sense of humor. Days after that battle, orders came. Kaela was to lead a small unit deep into enemy territory, stealth, not slaughter. It was a mission for the bold, or the desperate. As her commander spoke, her heart sank. She knew exactly where they were headed. The same valley where she'd first met Dane. Coincidence? She didn't believe in those anymore. The ride through the shadowed woods was quiet, but her mind screamed with doubt. She should be focused, calculating routes, anticipating ambushes. But all she could think about was him. Would he be there? Would they meet as enemies, or as something far more dangerous? Her sword weighed heavy at her side, but it wasn't steel slowing her down, it was the war waging inside. As twilight painted the forest in gold and ash, Kaela dismounted, every sense sharp, every nerve frayed. The trees whispered secrets, the ground held memories. And somewhere in the distance, she felt it. That pull. That dangerous, undeniable pull. She wasn't just walking into enemy land, she was walking straight into the heart of the storm she'd tried so hard to escape. The mission was simple: gather intel, return unseen. But nothing about this felt simple anymore. As Kaela moved through the ruins of the abandoned village, her instincts screamed at her to stay sharp. And yet, there he was. Dane. Standing by the well, alone, as if the gods themselves had scripted this impossible reunion. Her pulse quickened, not from fear, but from the chaos only he could awaken. Their eyes locked, and for a fleeting second, neither reached for a weapon. No armies. No orders. Just the suffocating truth neither could deny. His expression, guarded, conflicted, mirrored her own. This wasn't the battlefield. Here, there were no spectators, only two enemies tangled in a web spun by fate and forbidden longing. The world had drawn its lines. But here? Those lines bled together. Kaela should have walked away. Should have signaled her men, finished the mission. But she didn't. Her feet stayed rooted, her heart louder than reason. Dane took a step closer, and for the first time, words, not blades, stood between them. And those words? They'd be far more dangerous than any sword. Their conversation was cautious, sharp-edged like the swords they both carried. Kaela demanded answers, about the raids, the battles, the lies whispered across the borders. But Dane's words weren't the ones of a ruthless enemy. He spoke of duty, of oaths, of a kingdom as broken as her own. His people bled the same as hers. His soldiers buried the same brothers. Suddenly, the war felt smaller, and the truth much larger. For the first time, Kaela saw not a villain, but a man cornered by the same impossible choices she faced. His eyes weren't cold, they were tired. Worn by loss, sharpened by survival. She recognized that look. It stared back at her in the mirror every morning. They weren't so different. And that terrified her more than any ambush ever could. But the world beyond these ruins didn't care for complicated truths. Their kingdoms demanded loyalty, their people demanded blood. And yet, standing in that forgotten village, Kaela realized, the greatest threat wasn't the war outside, but the one neither of them dared to name, the war their hearts had already declared. The night after their secret meeting, Kaela couldn't sleep. Her mind replayed every word, every look, every dangerous truth exchanged between them. She had always believed enemies wore their hate like armor. But now, she wasn't sure. Maybe the real danger wasn't hatred, but understanding. And once you understood your enemy, how could you ever raise your sword against them again? The campfire crackled as her comrades celebrated small victories, unaware of the storm brewing inside her. They toasted fallen foes, sharpened blades, laughed at war songs. But Kaela? She sat in silence, wrestling with a battle no one could see. Her loyalty, once unshakable, now felt fragile. The ground beneath her beliefs was cracking, and she wasn't sure what remained beneath. In the quiet of that sleepless night, Kaela realized something terrifying. The war wasn't just out there, it was in here. Inside her chest. Inside her choices. And no blade, no battle plan, no victory song could prepare her for the next fight, the one where her heart would be the final battlefield. As dawn crept over the hills, a new order arrived, one that shattered any illusion of peace Kaela had left. Her army was preparing for a final assault, straight into Dane's territory. No negotiations. No mercy. Just blood and conquest. Her chest tightened as the map was unrolled, red lines drawn across familiar ground, the same ruins, the same valley, the same impossible choice waiting for her. Her comrades cheered, blades polished, armor gleaming with pride. But for Kaela, every clang of steel sounded like a funeral bell. She couldn't unsee what she had seen. Couldn't forget the humanity in Dane's eyes. War demanded monsters. But what if the only monsters were the ones following orders without question? The battlefield was set, but her soul was unraveling. That evening, as the sun bled into the horizon, Kaela stood by the cliffs, eyes fixed on the enemy lands. She should have been preparing for battle. Instead, she was preparing for something far riskier, a decision that could brand her a traitor, or save them both from a fate neither deserved. And time was running out. The night before the assault, Kaela slipped away from camp, her heart pounding louder than her footsteps. Every fiber of her training screamed this was madness. But logic had lost its grip the moment Dane's eyes met hers. She moved like a ghost through the forest, each step dragging her deeper into forbidden territory, and deeper into the storm she could no longer outrun. Dane was there, as if fate had written the moment into the stars. No swords drawn. No accusations. Just the raw, terrifying weight of everything left unspoken. His expression mirrored hers, exhausted, conflicted, but determined. They didn't need to explain. They both understood. The battlefield wasn't their only war anymore. And the choices they made tonight would change everything. Kaela's voice trembled, not with fear, but with the crushing weight of betrayal looming on both sides. "We can't keep doing this," she whispered. But neither moved. Neither walked away. Because deep down, they both knew, this wasn't just about loyalty or kingdoms anymore. It was about survival, theirs, and perhaps something greater. They made a pact that night, not as enemies, not as lovers, but as two souls exhausted by a war neither truly believed in. Information was exchanged, secret paths revealed, enough to save lives on both sides. It wasn't treason, not yet. But it danced dangerously close to the edge. For the first time, Kaela realized peace wasn't an impossible dream, it was a choice. A terrifying, lonely, dangerous choice. The weight of that pact settled on her shoulders like a second set of armor. She returned to camp at dawn, her comrades unaware of the storm raging beneath her calm exterior. They saw a warrior, a symbol of victory. But inside, she carried a secret that could end her, or end the war. Every whispered strategy, every sharpened blade, pressed tighter against her conscience. But secrets have sharp edges. And as the army marched toward Dane's territory, Kaela felt the noose tighten. There was no turning back now. Her heart had chosen. Her blade would have to follow. And somewhere beyond the hills, fate was already setting the final stage. The battlefield rose before them like a nightmare made real, smoke curling into the gray sky, banners snapping like warnings in the wind. Kaela stood at the front, her soldiers awaiting her signal. But her eyes weren't on the enemy lines. They were searching for him. And when she found Dane among the ranks, her heart nearly faltered. No words now. No hidden chapels. Just war. The first clash of steel erupted, drowning reason in chaos. Soldiers fell, arrows screamed through the air, the ground shook beneath the weight of history repeating itself. But Kaela fought with a different war raging inside, a battle between duty and every forbidden feeling she'd buried. Her sword met resistance, but her heart? It broke with every swing. And then, through the smoke and blood, Dane stood before her. No words. No time. Just choices. His blade hovered, hers trembling. The moment they'd both dreaded and longed for was here. One move, and everything would fall. But for the first time, Kaela realized, maybe it needed to. The world slowed to a cruel, deafening silence. Kaela's grip tightened on her sword, yet her heart screamed louder than any war horn. She saw it in Dane's eyes, the same fear, the same impossible choice. They were warriors, trained to obey, to conquer. But what they'd become, that was far more dangerous. They were proof that even enemies could fracture fate itself. Her comrades shouted, their blades rising, their faith in her unshaken. But if they knew the truth, the pact, the meetings, the feelings, she'd be branded a traitor. Perhaps she already was. Yet in that breathless pause, Kaela understood. She wasn't betraying her people, she was betraying a war that never served them. There's a difference. And it might cost her everything. Dane lowered his weapon first. A choice. A defiance. His gaze locked onto hers, steady, unwavering. The battlefield roared around them, but in that fragile moment, they carved their own path, a rebellion born not from hate, but from something far more terrifying, hope. The aftermath was chaos. The battle lines crumbled, commands lost to the storm. But through it all, Kaela and Dane never lifted their blades again. Word would spread, of hesitation, of betrayal, of impossible choices. But neither of them cared. They'd crossed the line drawn by generations of hate, and there was no returning. The war, at least for them, had already ended. In the eyes of their people, they were traitors, cowards, fools blinded by dangerous dreams. But in their hearts, they were free for the first time. The road ahead was uncertain, paved with whispers of rebellion and the weight of kingdoms that refused to change. But they would walk it together, no matter the price. As the sun bled into the horizon, Kaela realized wars don't end with swords. They end with Courage, the kind that defies orders, shatters expectations, and rewrites destiny itself. And though the world might never forgive them, they had already chosen love over fear. So, what would you have done? Could you look your people in the eye, knowing your heart had chosen the enemy? Or would you bury your feelings, sharpen your blade, and follow orders, no matter the cost? Kaela made her choice. She chose love over loyalty, truth over tradition, even if the world called her a traitor for it. But that's the thing about impossible choices, they reveal who you truly are. And maybe, just maybe, it's the rebels, the ones who dare to question, who rewrite history. So I ask you, would you have the courage to betray the throne, if it meant staying true to yourself? If this story made you think, even for a second, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on the notifications. There's more to come, and trust me, you won't want to miss what fate has planned next.